Hey everybody out there, this is Pastor John with another midweek thought provoker. And I think the thing that's on everybody's mind this week is Boston and the marathon bombing. And, I think we're watching news reports trying to figure out why this happened, who did it, what was their motive, and just in general, why do things like this happen? We've also had a couple other tragedies of smaller scale but closer to home. I learned about a recent murder-suicide right here in the Point that happened just recently, and some of you know was someone who is connected to the church in certain ways who was shot and killed last week at a very young age. And I think there's sometimes this struggle for me as a preacher when it comes to Sunday. What do you do with that? What do you do when tragedy has struck? What do you say? Do you do a whole different sermon based completely on the tragedy? Or do you just mention it or pray for it or just go on with what you were doing? And how big does the tragedy have to be to get a whole sermon? These kind of questions are things that I guess I wrestle with. And one of the hard things for me when it comes to sermons in general, but also this question about what do you do when something is on everyone's mind, is that we tend to look for answers to how do we respond right now. And even in a regular sermon, we want to know what's the practical thing I can do to make my life better. That's kind of the question we ask. And as a preacher, the hard thing for me is sometimes the best thing we can do is not something that's directly related to whatever our felt pain is, our felt need is at that particular moment. When Jesus comes to the preaching his message, he says, repent and believe. And he's just calling people into a whole new life. He's not saying, here's a quick fix here or there, here's why this tragedy happened, here's how you should respond. He's saying, turn your life toward God and let God do with you what he will. So there are just a lot of things where there just isn't one right answer. This is how you should respond. This is what you should do in light of Boston. And so while we will be talking about Boston Marathon bombing on Sunday a little bit, we're going to stick with our text from John 21, verses 1 through 14, and the story of the disciples encountering the risen Christ on the beach and having breakfast with him. And it's an amazing story about the gospel life. And I encourage you this week to look through that story, John 21, 1 through 14, and look for the elements of the gospel life that you see in there. What are some of the things just in those 14 verses, this little story about Jesus eating a meal with his disciples and calling out to them on the lake? What kinds of things are the disciples and Jesus doing there that translate into our everyday lives? And I wonder if that is the key. Not just how do we respond to this tragedy in Boston this week, but what kind of life are we living that's preparing us to face the hard things in life, that's preparing us to love and trust God during tragedy and grief and crisis. So anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts about any of these ramblings, about just sermons in general, or the Boston Marathon, or the text. If you get them to me before Sunday, you never know. Your observation or insight or question could make it into the sermon, with your permission, of course. So I hope this is helpful to you. I look forward to seeing you, worshiping with you, and encountering God together with you. God bless you.